nonprofit consulting as well. So anyway, and I also own a little business in Old Salem. So I know that that's on our to-do list, and I'm excited about working on that part of our city, especially to make it more friendly for everybody. All right. Is that enough, Carol?
That's great. Thank you, Ned. I would take time to go around the committee and let them introduce themselves. However, I think we have a pretty tight agenda today. So I would ask when you have availability, each of you, if you could reach out, maybe have a conversation with Ned. And he is always eager to meet you at Lot 63 in Old Salem. He didn't say what the business name was, but I'll put it out there. But Ned and I know each other from Leadership Winston-Salem, and it actually, his interest in the committee started with a conversation that we had at one of the social functions that Leadership Winston-Salem had. He was not aware of our committee, if I remember correctly, and we started a conversation about the committee. We also did a walk with Amy and Donna one day. So he has had a good introduction to some of the work that we're doing and what is going on with our committee and how we're trying to improve the walkability and bikeability within Winston. So welcome, Ned. We are very happy to have you. That leaves us with just one vacancy on the committee, so that's very exciting. We'll first begin with a review of the September 11th minutes. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read those, and I will ask if there are any edits, revisions, corrections that need to be made. Hearing none, I ask for an approval.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Greg. A second? John? Very good. All those in favor of the minutes?
Aye. Aye.
Very good. Anyone opposed?
They were very well written. Again, I just wanted to compliment staff that put it together. So
thank you, Ben. They were very thorough. All right, moving into the agenda. First on the list is the Old Salem. I asked Mason to come at 9 o'clock. So since he is not here, hopefully he will be able to join us. He does work full time. So, and I know many of us here today do, but he said that he would try once again. If not, I've made some pretty good notes from our Monday meeting, and I'll be able to provide that update if he cannot join us on Monday. But because he has been very instrumental in pulling together the survey and doing a lot of the work, I thought it would be good to have him here so you could meet Mason Stevens, who's been working on the policy plan and project work group, and hear from him directly. So next we will move into item number 4, which is looking at the document to present to the city DOT on connecting the strollway to the Long Branch Trail. I am, Ben, I'm going to try to pull that up myself because I did receive comments back on the document that was sent out earlier this week. And so I've made just a few adjustments based on that, but we do have some other things to discuss to decide if we want to add that or not to the document. So let me get that pulled up. I've made the changes in red. If I can figure this out. Windows. Is it up? Am I still in the meeting? And is the document
Looks like
up?
it's loading.
It's loading, yeah. There it is.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Everybody can see it? because I lose sight of it other than on my desktop. All right, so I'll jump in and point out what changed from the prior version. The first change was this could be overcome, and this is talking about security lighting and things like that, by adding pedestrian lighting call boxes and other security measures. I reread what had been written and it was a little rough, so I changed the language on that slightly. So that was not from one of the suggestions. The next thing that was adjusted in the document was if this option is selected, and this was a standalone paragraph after the two options were listed, and I felt like, again, maybe to improve it, it would be better to take that standalone comment and add it to the first street one because it applied specifically to the first street option. So if this option is selected, the connection should utilize Patterson Avenue in the short term with long-term plans to connect the two trails at First Street with a bridge. And then down here at the bottom, for further recommends to connect the two trails eastward along 3rd Street to Brushy Fork Trail in East Winston. So a little bit more specific there. And then to provide wayfinding signage not only at the connecting points, but along the paths of the trails to direct the users appropriately. So we had, the reason I went ahead and added this without bringing it back to the committee was because we had talked about the wayfinding signage and I had not put that into the document, and I felt like that was a very good add. So Amy, thank you for calling that out. Some of the other things that Amy had mentioned in her reply was, should we, and this is a question to the committee, should we suggest the type of infrastructure that we're looking for on these two connections? Or I guess I would say not. So what Amy had mentioned was, and Amy, maybe I should let you talk instead of me doing this. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, my only thought was, obviously all this will have to have a feasibility study, or, the city will do their normal process to figure out what's actually appropriate and feasible. But I think if we as a committee might want to be a little more like, this would be our desire to have a wide side path, and we've talked about a protected cycle track or a protected bike lane. A cycle track meaning there's both directions of traffic side by side. I can send a picture of that if someone needs an example, but we used to have a really short cycle track out on, I think, like Rams Drive or something, when there was a construction project underway, and people seem to like it. It's very prevalent in other communities. We don't have any of it, and we also don't have anything protected, no protected bike lane. So this could be an opportunity to install that kind of improved infrastructure. And I think specifying, do we want to have a shared path where pedestrians and bicyclists and other users use the same path, kind of like the Long Branch Trail is, where it's just a really wide path, or do we want separate infrastructures for different users? I think if the committee has a feeling, I would say throw it in there. The city will have to do their own study to figure out what's possible and complies with ordinances and stuff. But that was just my thought, is do we want to try to be a little prescriptive and say what we desire?
So I'll open it up to the committee for discussion.
I think we should suggest what we foresee there, because if we're going to the committee as a recommendation, they're going to come right back to us like, well, what? I mean, what are we talking about here? So at least we should know what would be ideal there. And I'll say I went back out a couple times to kind of run through these paths and to check them out. And after further review, I kind of like 3rd Street, where it runs right into the brand new courthouse. And I was just thinking, like, as it goes for purpose, especially, if we're talking about connecting other parts of town, I mean, that could be a highly utilized direct path to somewhere people need to go. I don't know for sure, but it's very pretty. It is. I don't know. I don't know. So I don't know like how soon they need these recommendations. It might be worth us going through and kind of going through these things. I just, once I went out and checked them out, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I still like the First Street. I am the passage between Liberty and Main. That's the one area that's really narrow and it's one way up going against. It's like, but there kind of is already like right there on between Liberty and 2nd Street. There is kind of already a divided bike lane. It's not designated that, but that's kind of what's going on there. So I don't know. I guess I feel like they're, one, why can't we have all the routes work with some kind of infrastructure, even if it's like sharrows or something, because there actually is quite a bit of infrastructure in place. It's not like the bike lanes and, certainly divided stuff, but it seemed to lend itself to a variety of things. And that's on this side. I will say, while we're talking about it, I'm not sure that 3rd Street, even though it runs straight down to the path, is the right avenue. I went down 3rd Street on the other side of 52, and we would need community buy-in. The road's really narrow. Cars are parked on both sides of the road, and the houses are literally they're like 15 feet from the street. So you would literally be sending a path right down people's front yard. And there was a lot of community traffic there. So I just think if that is the case, we would absolutely need their buy-in, because the city be sending the public through people's front yards, essentially, is the feeling I got. And I will say that even 4th Street was kind of the same thing. And it dead ends. I didn't see exactly what it dead ends on the other side of 52, but I think 5th Street, which already has infrastructure in place, and it seems the best to continue that. You could even enhance it. There's just a lot wider. I mean, it's hilly, but it's pretty good. Oh yeah, and 3rd Street on this side, on the Innovations quarter side of 52, is a main thoroughfare. So if we went through 4th Street in that area and then cut over to one of the other ones, it would be better. And it could highlight the new Cleveland Avenue Homes project, because it splits right down the middle of that, which I could see being a major thoroughfare for all the new people that are going to be moving there when that opens. So before we recommend anything, especially on the east side of 52, I think we need to do a little bit more due diligence of what is ideal over there.
So you would recommend that we take off that first bullet under the committee further recommends?
Yeah, I don't personally think that, like I said, 3rd Street is the right street, but more than anything, we would absolutely need to engage the community that live on 3rd Street to see if they wanted that, and then how would that work. Like I said, it's a narrower street, and there's parking on both sides of the street, and the houses were really close. So it was, yeah.
Well,
I rode through there, I felt like I was riding through somebody's front yard, kind of.
I guess I'll have to say that I didn't really go over and check out 3rd Street that far. Visibly, I could see, to the bridge and beyond the bridge, and it looked very wide to me in that area. But you're saying when you get further down there, it starts to narrow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. Obviously, I don't know exactly. All I remember, I'm just going off my remembrance of it, and I remembered cars parked on both sides of the street, and the house is really close, and I just felt like it would be something that we need to engage the neighborhood instead of saying what's right to go through there.
All right. Thank you for that input.
Quick question: how far? I mean, on the west side, we know where it dead ends into that, I think it's that church there. But on the east side, how far out would we be thinking to extend this? path.
Well, Third Street doesn't, if I remember looking at the map, it does not go all the way to Brushy Creek. So there would be some turns.
It tees into Fifth Street, so does Fourth.
Yeah.
Oh, and also to Third Street on right there by Innovation Quarter is a roundabout, which would be pretty hard to navigate for pedestrians and for bikes, where Fourth Street was a intersection, which was a lot better to navigate crossing. Sorry, I don't mean to throw a wrench in all this stuff, but I was like, I just got out there and was just checking it all out, and some of the stuff wasn't ideal.
So I want to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what the objective originally was versus where we're moving towards.
Yep.
Were we trying to connect the strollway
We
to the
were.
Long Branch Trail?
We were.
So are we changing directions in terms of what we're trying to accomplish?
I had added that because we had discussed it a few times about making sure that the trail does not end just connecting to the Long Branch Trail, that it continues on into East Winston. But now, having heard Michael's comments and your question, Donna, I'm wondering if we should possibly just remove that.
I understand the connection and I think it makes sense, but I'm just wondering what the DOT is just what the objective really is in terms of the connections.
The objective was to connect the two, the Long Branch Trail and the strollway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we were just, because of this group having some, insights, we were able to say, hey, if we can be thoughtful about where this connection is, if it can also go east. I don't think it's imperative, or to your point, Donna, it's not part of the original ask, but I think some folks were like, hey, well, why couldn't we be thoughtful about where this infrastructure is going, so it not only connects just this little downtown pocket, but also goes east. But yeah, I think it's just an extra a wish list thing.
Yeah, because I think it'd be a great idea to kind of look at it all, because there's also some other infrastructure that might not be Third Street, but that Long Branch Trail goes east. I mean, I just think there are a few things that are going on that side that we could explore.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we've done due diligence to explore it.
Yeah, to your point, Donna, like the Long Branch Trail goes over, and I'm sorry, Sharon, I know you've had your hand up a long time.
Yeah.
But just while we're on this, the Long Branch Trail has bridges that go over like Third,
Right.
Fourth District. So the connection needs to be thoughtful there. And I'm wondering, if almost like MLK, Long Branch is going to expand northward in some future time. And I wonder if like MLK, since it's at ground level there, no bridge, that might be a better way to extend eastward or something. But I agree. I don't know if, Carol, just overall, we have more time for the committee to think through this more, but I'll be quiet.
All right. It does sound like we need to think through that more and do more due diligence. So
yeah,
this conversation is very helpful. So I'm hearing that should come out of this, and maybe the committee can take this in a future discussion to do more due diligence and come back and address this in a future request.
Can Ned and I get our comment?
I'm sorry. When I am sharing my
for a while. Yep. Go ahead.
When I'm sharing my screen, I can't see raised hands or anything like that.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna really piggyback on Michael's comments. I worked in the Chatham building for 5 years, which is at the corner of 4th and Cherry. And in that, when I saw this First Street, just having experienced the traffic flow of downtown, delivery trucks, food pickups, and accidents, quite honestly, I agree on focusing on that 3rd Street stretch. Also, and I probably forgot half my comment, so I apologize, but the other piece, someone just mentioned the MLK Bridge. The United Way has an initiative to make that a pedestrian friendly thoroughfare, to connect those neighborhoods on that 52 MLK side with downtown. And that is the bridge that they've had some big community-based organizations hold events there to sort of bring people together to build some familiarity and comfort with that bridge. So I would really recommend maybe even reaching out to United Way and getting their buy-in and an additional recommendation to focus on that area. Joshua Swift would be another partner on that because he was part of the that coalition with United Way with the health department.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that, Sharon.
Yeah, if I think of other things, I'll put them in the box instead. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.
I've got, I guess I'm the newbie, so I feel like I don't have the right to make any comments, but I'm going to make them anyway. So I apologize. This might be my last meeting. You might kick me off, but yeah, I guess I have two comments. One is that first street is a comfortable road to run on. I'll just trying to put on my running hat, and I use the cut through quite a bit already, but behind the new courthouse, and that it's like I think it's technically North Patterson. No cars are allowed to go through there.
Right.
And because of the new courthouse, they have a parking lot there, and so they don't use that road very much. And I'm wondering if converting that road to a pedestrian bike like road, then you could just tie it directly into 3rd Street, if that would be the most easy way to solve the problem. Since the county the city already owns that road, and it doesn't have cars running on it already. I wonder if that might be a solution that we could talk through how to make that. We could put some beautification on there and make it something that could be pretty. I mean, I use it already. I think it works. It works pretty well. So that's just a thought. I don't know if you guys have thought through that, but that could be like the easy button. And then I am aware on the east side of 52 there's a lot of development going on. Liberty Atlantic is the main developer over on the other side of the innovation corridor, and they're putting together a comprehensive, like, there's like a downtown partnership organization. They're creating like an East Winston partnership, and I think I would just recommend if we're talking about walkability or anything in that area, that we work through that partnership that they're building, because it would make sense to just be part of the comprehensive plan, and that's already kind of in place. I think the United Way is part of that, to Sharon's point, and I'm involved in that as well, so I could help get us connected there. But I know that there are a lot of people thinking through how to that corridor between Winston-Salem State and MLK, like how to do that really well. So they might already have some ideas that we don't even know about yet. So I'd be happy to try to do some poking around and figuring out what's already been discussed. They might already have some good ideas.
Hey, Ned, can you invite one of those leaders to our meeting to kind of tell us about that?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that would be a good introduction. Yeah, we certainly want to tap into what's going on and meet the people that are involved in that.
Yeah, I can do that for sure.
And Michael, Joshua Swift was on our committee for so many years, and he'd be a great person to come back to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dynamic conversation today. Thank you all. Great suggestions. All right. So I am. Is there anyone opposed to removing that first bullet under the committee further recommends? Hearing none, I am removing that. Okay. And Ned, back to your recommendation of North Patterson. That actually is what that first option is. It would go off of the strollway along First Street down to that North Patterson Avenue and across that backside of the courthouse and all of those things. The reason we had the second option for Third Street is because we felt like that First Street option was great for bicyclists, probably for runners. Donna and I had walked that together. We were a little uncomfortable in walking back there and felt like if we were alone, maybe even more uncomfortable, just because it is a long stretch, it is isolated, but it could be overcome by adding pedestrian lighting and call boxes. That would help that tremendously. And as you mentioned, doing some beautification back there. So First Street with Patterson is an option. The city has actually talked about doing a bridge. So at the end of First Street, if there could be money found easily, quickly, you could build a bridge from First Street over to the Long Branch Trail, which would take it up and over the railroad track, which would be very interesting and a lot safer than actually walking across or riding across the railroad track on Third Street. So that is one of the options. Third Street was a second option preferred by the pedestrians within the committee. So we thought we would actually take both of those options back to the city as possibilities. Let's go back to Amy's comment about should we recommend what we would like to see for infrastructure.
Carol, this is Greg. I'm a little bit confused on some of the conversation here. Are we keeping the language the same? Or are we going to keep First and Third Streets as the two options? I'm a little bit mixed up on this right here.
Well, I think based on our last conversation, we were going to present both as options.
Okay, all right. So what was
we as a committee would support either or.
Okay, all right. I thought I heard somebody say we're not wanting to suggest taking First Street off. Do I need to turn up my hearing aid here a little bit? But
I think the thing we were taking off, Greg, was just that we're recommending anything specific eastward. We're going to pause on a recommendation on connections eastward.
Oh, okay.
That's what we were nixing from this letter and keeping it very true to just Stroway to Long Branch.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. I thought you were talking about either eliminating the First Street or modifying going eastward toward MLK. I missed that, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we all agreed that we needed more due diligence.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
okay.
and that was beyond the scope of what the original request was.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay, I got you.
Getting back to Amy's comment, yeah, I think we ought to put something a little more specific regarding the infrastructure.
I think I had removed the wrong one, but not sure.
And I don't know that we can be uber prescriptive because again, we don't know the widths of things and the requirements and the turn lane. But if we can say, as feasible, the committee recommends a two-way protected cycle track for road users, and a widened side path or widened sidewalk, or we could even say a 10-foot side, whatever, for pedestrian use. I don't know that, because it might be different. Sometimes like the lanes will narrow, and even like First Street starts with a boulevard. It's got like a little boulevard between the lanes starting after Main Street. So it widens there. And so maybe there isn't I think our engineers will have to dig into it. But if we just said a simple statement like, whatever, the committee recommends, as feasible, a two-way protected cycle track and, I don't know what's a standard sidewalk versus a really nice wide one, or maybe we recommend one with a grassy strip or something, whatever. But again, that's for the committee. If you guys are really excited about the potential of a two-way cycle track or just regular bike lanes or just sharrows, or do we want a side path that's for all the users? Did anybody have strong feelings?
I mean, I like the idea of yes, suggesting like the greatest option and letting them whittle it down through, at least we're planting that seed. So no, yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea.
One of the things that we talked about, the reason we were given the two options, from what I remember, was one was more of a pedestrian. So the 3rd Street was people being able to walk and also have access to retail. I thought that was more of a focus, but then I thought that the other trail, 1st Street, was more feasible for a biker. But I
That's
thought
what I
that's why we
remember
were
too, Don.
proposing. That's why I thought we were proposing the two, not that both would be both. And I thought that was also because of infrastructure. It would take the least amount of resources to make the adjustment.
I see. Okay, thank you, Donna. That's a good clarification because I missed the meetings when y'all were discussing. So and maybe then our wording can be slightly different.
Yeah.
When you say, well, the committee supports 2 routes, one for cycling usage and one for centric, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
That's what that was.
That's what I remember too, Donna. So.
Okay. And that makes it a lot easier too, because I think the 3rd Street concern was like in front of Callidium, it gets real narrow. There's street parking, there's whatever, and that would be hard to add on street cycling infrastructure. But the sidewalk's concerned, that's not as difficult.
It was also a way when people come to our community or come to our town to be able to see more of our city. So that's why connecting that walking past that Callidium was still important, because going 1st Street, you're going to miss downtown.
Yeah.
Walking from a walking perspective.
Great point. Yeah.
I think originally the strollway, the design years ago, was to go right where Marshall Park is and then connect to Trade Street, and so and go northward on that, so that there's a true north-south connection through the middle of downtown as well. I think that even some of the infrastructure years and years ago when that was put together actually had elements of that and are still remaining there. So.
All right. So I guess
you may not remember that when they did the Trade Street Mall. I don't know if anybody was around here long enough ago, but Trade Street was basically closed off to vehicles, and so it was about a 2-block area that they literally had canopies and all sorts of things out in the middle of the street there, and it was a vehicle free block area, and it went right through about where Marshall Park is, and then continued down Trade Run. And I think there's still elements of that is there. So that was all sort of a connected system that went up Trade Street. So and it continued on southward through where Marshall Park now is, but and then went down to what we now call the strollway. So it's not like we haven't had that before. We have had it. It's just it's evolved into different things or into a different design, which right now it just ends basically at Marshall Park, and that's pretty much it.
Looking at this first statement, the committee supports 2 of the possible routes as follows. Should that read differently?
I would maybe take out possible. I would just say supports 2 routes as follows. And then maybe where it's got the first bullet, First Street, this is the transportation route. I don't know. We word that first 2 sentences where it specifies like this is the best solution for cyclists. You have all the information there. I think maybe just clarifying that First Street is the transportation option. Let me just say the best solution for bicyclists, providing commuters with easy access, blah, blah, blah. It's also the least amount of grade or something like that. And then the second part, Trade Street, this is the route for pedestrians or something, just to clarify that we're ultimately proposing two paths, 2 connections.
Okay.
I think.
All right. Thank you. And then add something for infrastructure.
Yeah, and that bullet you have down there, I mean, as feasible, a 2-way cycle track and a widened side path for pedestrian is preferred. Or something like that.
All right.
Because ideally, right, I mean, DOT would say, okay, these recommendations look reasonable. We'll have somebody do a feasibility study, or staff will do their Brigham Row. And then ideally, Ben, this would be brought back to the committee and we can weigh in on what the city is proposing, right?
Yeah, no, that's definitely correct. Yeah, I think at the moment we're kind of leaning towards for First Street to be like the 2-way protected cycle track. And then maybe with how it's like the boulevards on First Street are kind of moving traffic to one side of the boulevard and then having the other side of the center median be a protected bike cycle track. So that's kind of where we are right now. But I think, you know, if that goes forward and then, you know, Third Street could be we could do some additional pedestrian or sidewalk improvements on Third Street. So.
Okay.
Carol,
Right.
should we, on those last 2 comments at the bottom, as feasible 2-way cycle track, basically for the First Street and a widened side path for Third Street, should we be? Otherwise, it kind of looks like we want both for both options. So.
Well, I would never be opposed to a widened sidewalk anywhere and everywhere we can offer it, especially in downtown where there's not like green strips, grass strips and stuff. But yeah, I think that's probably a good call out. And then Carol, if you can add protected 2-way cycle track, because however we can do that, either with simple bollards or if we do something more substantial and beautiful like the planters or something, but I want some protected lanes.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Well, I'll work on adjusting the language on the First and Third Street options to make it a little bit more clear that one is a preferred bicycle route and the other is a preferred pedestrian route. And then we'll bring this back to the committee next month for final approval. All right. Thank you all. It was a great conversation. All right, moving into, Mason has joined us. I think he's still on and hopefully he can stay on. Well, I eliminated that and I need to stop sharing. Okay, bring everybody back. Oh, now I can see everyone. All right, so Mason, you're on. Or did he have to go? Mason, are you on mute? Hang on for just a second. See if I can bring him in.
Hello?
Hey,
Oh, there we
Mason.
go.
Okay, there we go.
Let me introduce
Hi, everybody.
Mason. He's a valuable member to the policy project and plan work group. He has brought in great ideas for us to consider and think about. He created a survey for the Old Salem pedestrian bicycle friendly district to utilize in the community. And I've asked him here today so that you all can meet him, and also for him to give us an update on how things are going with our community reach out on the concept of making that a pedestrian bicycle friendly district.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen really quick. Okay, so we put together, do you see it first? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we put together this little survey and put it on some brochures, as well as some QR codes, and brought it around different places in Old Salem to drop, just drop off and see how many people we could get. We ended up getting 45 responses, which as far as city surveys go, that's pretty good in my opinion. So just quickly going over it, simple name, email address, and then a check mark indicating the improvements that you're in support of. And I'm just gonna, and then I also left in a space for other where people can fill in their own responses and see what they want to do. Okay, so I'm just gonna move straight to that. We don't need to know everyone's name and email, but if you guys want that list of emails later to create some sort of list to reach out to people with, then I'll do that. But going over it, it looks like we have, honestly, most things people were in favor of in terms of improvements for the pedestrian infrastructure. The only things that were not overwhelmingly positive were eliminating right turn on red, and traffic mitigation and calming was kind of 50-50, possibly just because they didn't understand what that meant. And also the leading pedestrian intervals, which in my opinion seems locked in with the city. They're already moving towards this. Nobody checked that because I don't think they know what that meant. So yeah. But so two-way cycle tracks, 66% were in favor. Visible crosswalks, 82%. Upgraded lighting intersection. Well, this one had leading pedestrian intervals, so could be that. I don't know. This one had 73%, so maybe they just saw upgraded light intersections. Additional four-way stops, 62% were in favor. Wayfinding signs, 73%. Bike parking, 68%. Reducing vehicular speed limits. This one surprised me a little bit, but it seemed like everyone was in favor. 86% were in favor of reducing speed limits to 35 miles per hour, which is good. And reducing vehicular speed limits to 20 miles per hour on every other street was 67%. So that's, we also had, just in terms of the comments, it seems like some people were firmly in support of limiting right turn on red, which is kind of funny, that there were so many people voting against it, but some people were very in favor of it. Some people were saying stuff about raising and separating bike lanes, as well as connecting the greenway to these bike lanes. And then most of this was just agreeing with the other stuff. So specific intersections sometimes are talked about, such as Academy, where the strollway meets it, needs to be protected more. But yeah, so just generally speaking, it seems like this this sort of thing is people are in favor in this neighborhood. We also had a survey for the businesses, but I think that's still undergoing, and I don't have any information on that. No collated data like this yet. So yeah, that's kind of what I have on this. Any questions from anyone?
Mason, thank you. This is really, really neat and insightful. There was one about something on Salt Street, speed bumps on Salt Street. What does the rest of that one say?
Yes. Salt Street, Main Street, Church Street, due to excessive speeding.
Interesting. But that was the only person who had said speed bumps. And was speed bumps one of the main categories that people could check the box for?
No, unfortunately didn't have
Because we
that in
didn't put that in there. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it's my least favorite traffic calming measure, but
Yeah, me
I know
as
it can
well.
be effective. So,
Mhm.
okay, thank you.
There's another speed bump comment right below that, low profile speed bumps. Something,
Yeah.
something.
And in the Old Salem Historic District. Yeah. And then one person also saying that Broad Street has terrifying bike lanes, so they bike very often.
I concur.
I would agree.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. So I can get Google Sheets off of this directly and send it to the group if you'd like. And that should have some of the data on it, or all of this data, I should say.
And Mason, if you want to just send it to me, I can send it out to the group.
All right, sure, will do.
Yeah, thank you. I did take just a little bit of time. Our work group did meet Monday afternoon. And we have a total of over 50 signatures on the support letter that you all approved back in July. We have gone to businesses, to homeowners associations, met with large groups, but we have over 50 signatures gathered in addition to the 48 responses that Mason just shared with you. And we have all been amazed that all of the responses have been very positive. We've collected comments from those that we've met in person, and those will be gathered in a spreadsheet. So I think we have great support from the community to make these improvements and to declare the area a pedestrian bicycle friendly zone. So it's very exciting, I think. Any questions or comments from the group?
Has there been any, I mean, I doubt it, especially in the political season, has there been any like door-to-door canvassing for residents in that area? Or you said this was all like brochure and various, okay.
No, we did meet with a couple of the homeowners associations.
Yeah, that's probably the way more efficient way to do it. But I will say,
Yeah.
I mean, from my experience doing political canvassing, you know, most of the time it's not useful. No one opens the door, but there's a few times someone does, and you get to have a really meaningful conversation. And those tend to be the people that have the most impact. But it's really labor intensive, and I don't know that we have the resources to do that. But depending on how things trend, it sounds like we're already getting good support even without having to go through that level of interaction. So I'm not suggesting it. I was wondering if anybody had done that. So thank you all for working on that. It's really exciting to see how many people are supportive.
It is wonderful. I really thought we'd get more pushback, but it has met with actually the only resistance was from Old Salem on adding a crosswalk at, I think it's Walnut Street, from the visitor center to Walnut Street in the Old Salem district. And they do not want a crosswalk there. So I actually X'd it, although there have been people since then that have said that they really do want it. But they don't want it because they want the visitors to use the covered bridge. That was the intent of the covered bridge. However, human nature is to take shortcuts. So if you've spent the day touring Old Salem and you're coming back to your car at the visitor center and you see Walnut Street, human nature is not to go that block further to the covered bridge, but to cut at Walnut Street. And I see people crossing there quite frequently. So that's a really tough one, I think. But that has been about all the resistance that I got when I went out to the different groups.
Yeah, and I get that they don't want to encourage those crossings. It's kind of like the Peters Creek, people are gonna always shortcut. But hopefully maintaining those clear crossings lessens that, but people are always going to do what people do, right?
I think I've crossed there before, so I too am guilty. All right, great discussion again. Thank you all for your feedback on that. Moving to the next agenda item, Pedestrian Safety Month, social media post discussion. So I reached out to Ben and said, hey, Ben, October is Pedestrian Safety Month. Can our social media group, can the city do any advertising? And Ben's response was, well, what would you like to have advertised? So we thought that we would bring it back to the committee and ask you your thoughts and ideas. After the past 2 days, my thought and idea is to advertise to vehicle drivers that crosswalks are a place where you're supposed to hesitate and let pedestrians cross, because the last 2 days, cars have not stopped for me at crosswalks. Even when I'm in the middle of the street, a car would try to go on through. So very dangerous. That would be my top one, but let me pause there and open it up to the floor for other thoughts and suggestions.
I'm going to jump right in on that, Carol. Amen, amen. People do not stop for pedestrians in Winston-Salem. We are known for that. And we already have, I believe, Hunter, the graphics and messaging for that already in the city's social media files. Because Bike Walk NC has pushed those out. So they already have messages ready to go on that. But yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. And I'm going to have to scoot off on that note. Thank you. Great to see you all. Ned, nice to meet you. And good to see the rest of you. Bye.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, I would agree. I saw something, I have property in Roanoke, so I get a lot of stuff for Roanoke, Virginia, but they had something a while ago that was a nice, quick little video they did about like every intersection is a pedestrian crossing. Doesn't matter if there's markings or not markings, a sign or no sign, anywhere, unless there's a signal, unless there is a pedestrian signal on the intersection, and even then you should yield to the pedestrian, but it was basically trying to say like anytime you see a pedestrian, you should stop for them. There's a very different culture there, so it's probably more effective, that kind of thing. But I do like the idea of maybe emphasizing that, and maybe in addition to our city doing marketing, if the city or even maybe just this committee could also do a press release and send that to some of the media outlets, they might do their additional coverage as well to kind of re-emphasize this. But I think if we picked one thing, I mean, that would be a big one, is that at intersections, you always stop for a person trying to cross.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know they just put new signage at Elizabeth and Miller. I walk there all the time, and nobody ever stops on Miller Street.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, I'll just say pedestrians need to know that is their right, because a lot of times I see pedestrians for very reasonable reasons, whatever, being hesitant, right, to not like walk out and demand their space and being able to cross because they're scared, and I get that. But like letting pedestrians know that is their right, that if they're with their dog or with their kid in their stroller, like they should be able to cross the street regardless of. I see it a lot on Main Street too, for people crossing Main Street in that neighborhood. So maybe on the flip side, encouraging pedestrians not to take undue risk, but just to let them know it's their right that they can cross.
Another thing that came to my mind, but I'm a little mixed on whether we should do this or not, but to emphasize that as it's getting dark, it's important to wear bright clothes or to lights, but then you're almost turning the blame from the drivers to the pedestrians. So I am a little mixed on that. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Carol. Yes, I don't think the onus is on the pedestrian to be visible. The onus is on the vulnerable user should be the vulnerable user. And not to say, again, that anyone should be reckless and take undue risk. But yeah, people driving a couple 1,000-pound vehicle are the ones who need to be paying attention.
Amy, do you have, can you provide a link to that Roanoke one?
I'll try to find it. Yeah, it might have been on Instagram, so Lord knows if I could find it. But they have a pretty decent website, so I'll see if I could find it. But I remember it being a nice, succinct, kind of with like a demonstration in the video. So I'll try to find it. And I didn't put in the chat what the city has in their Watch For Me page. So that lists out 5 driver laws, and I think we're talking about the first one, which is drivers are required to yield to pedestrians at marked crossings and unmarked crosswalks at intersections, except where there is a traffic or pedestrian signal. That's a North Carolina statute. Whatever. So.
You know, Carol, I do like your idea about pedestrians because it's getting dark, and maybe it's not advertised right this moment, but if in November when the time changes, because I think it is important that everyone does have to play a part. And when it's dark outside, if someone has on dark clothing, sometimes you just can't see people. And as it's going to get darker, maybe it would be a nice idea to talk about reflective gear as we prepare for to fall back.
Okay.
Because it's still football season too, and people are going to football games, crossing streets.
Yep. Good point. Okay. Thank you. Great discussion on that today too. Any other thoughts or comments? So keeping along the safety line, I am going to turn it over to Ben to talk about the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration Notice of Proposed Rulemaking for Pedestrian Safe Vehicle Design.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, it's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is.
And that was like the shortest way I could word it. So I will share my screen here. Yeah, so NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, is proposing a rule for vehicle makers for vehicle designs that take into consideration the crash between a pedestrian and a vehicle. Right now, I think, most of the people on the committee here are aware that pedestrian fatalities in this country have risen sharply in the last few years. This is a rule that they're proposing. Other countries have rules like this, but the United States does not yet. So just wanted to share with the committee that they're taking public comment until, I believe, November 18th. Yep. So if anyone on the committee is looking to make a public comment in support of this rule or making any other comments, feel free to do so, and I'll share this link with the committee. And I think it's already on the consent agenda. The link is, so let me know if you have any trouble with that link. So just wanted to share.
Thank you, Ben. And it is important to provide comments to these different legislative issues that are being raised at the federal level. The more that we can share our voices, the more they know it's important to us, and the more likely it is to be passed. So if you can take some time to pull that up and share your comments. If you have trouble with comments, there are 1,200 of them already in there that you can take a look at and try to figure out how you want to word it. It seems like most of those comments, those 1,200 comments, were made shortly after this was released, and it's kind of gone silent and dark, but it is open, I think, until the middle of November, if I remember looking at it yesterday. So do try to pull that up and make a few comments and leave your thoughts there. All right, moving on to, are there any questions or comments? All right, let's move on to prioritization 7.0 division needs local input with Hunter.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol, and good to see everybody again. A few months ago, I came to y'all and talked to you a little bit about our regional impact point assignment period. That is the second stage of prioritization. Now we're moving on to the third stage, which is division needs point assignment projects. Division needs point assignment projects are exciting because it's the only pool within prioritization where bicycle and pedestrian projects are eligible. It's unfortunate, but they are eligible under division needs, and that is at the very least a good thing. So there are 23 projects, bicycle and pedestrian projects, under consideration for funding at the division needs level within our Winston-Salem urban area MPO, and the vast majority of those are located here in the city of Winston-Salem. So certainly encourage you to take a look at the listing of the projects, not just our bicycle and pedestrian, but our roadway projects that might incorporate some elements of good bicycle and pedestrian design. We've got transit projects eligible at the division needs level. In addition, there's an aviation project and a couple of rail projects under consideration too. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to kind of explain how we can go about commenting this time around. And I'll start with our public meeting. Just want to make sure everybody can see the screen. Awesome.
Yes.
So our first public meeting is not just a chance to, have some input on the 72 projects that are under consideration in prioritization for the development of the 2026 to 2035 STIP, but it's also to really have an opportunity to weigh in and chart a direction for what you would like to see as far as transportation planning and investment in our area all the way through 2050. So the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is something that we're required to update every 4 to 5 years as an MPO, and it goes hand in hand with prioritization, which is more of a short term, the next 10 years type of funding mechanism. So we invite you to come out to that public meeting on Monday, October 28th, 2024, from 5 to 7 p.m. over at Forsyth County Central Library. We'll hope to have you there. If not, we will be hosting other public meetings throughout the end till the end of this year to gather some initial input for that plan. But this will be the only public meeting that focuses on prioritization because we need to get our points in by the end of November. So just again, a quick explanation about what the 2050 MTP does. It is our long-range transportation plan that informs the future of driving, walking, biking, taking transit, rail, and aviation in the Winston-Salem area. And the purpose of this meeting is really to help us establish a vision and goals for what the future of transportation should look like. So early activities, we're going to ask you to prioritize things like safety, maintenance, congestion, all of those factors. And then prioritization 7.0, as I mentioned, is how we develop the next 10-year construction and funding schedule throughout the entire state. We've got 72 projects that are under consideration. If you're wondering what those 72 projects are, we have a nice convenient prioritization landing page with an interactive map like we did last time. I'm going to throw that in the chat right now. I'll also send out an email to Carol that she can forward. And there are 72 projects, but we unfortunately only have 1,400 points. What that essentially means is that we have a maximum of 100 points that we can, allocate towards a top 14 projects. We've decided to split our 1,400 points across 15 projects and are making the recommendation of funding the following projects. One of them is a safety system off of runway 15 at Smith Reynolds Airport. Bicycle and pedestrian, the top scoring project was the Silas Creek Parkway sidewalk from Bolton to Hawthorne. That would continue the funded Silas Creek Parkway sidewalk that you've got, EB 5722, from its terminus around Bolton all the way down to Hawthorne, making that convenient connection to Novant Health, Forsyth Hospital, and a little bit better connectivity to Haynes Mall there. So that would continue EB 5722 if funded. Old Hollow Road widening in Kernersville would add sidewalks and bike lanes to both sides. We've got the Akron and Shore Fair at-grade crossing improvements recommended mainly to fulfill that Whitaker Park redevelopment, economic development project in North Winston-Salem. Some HVAC replacement and betterments over at the Clark Campbell Transportation Center downtown. We've additionally made some recommendations for giving full points to the Peters Creek Parkway sidewalk from Brewer Road up by Parkland High School all the way down to South Park. Motor Road sidewalk touching over more in north and northeast Winston-Salem from Old Rural Hall to Ogburn Avenue. That's an area where there is a little bit of a crash hotspot involving both bikes and peds. Got some road widenings out in Bermuda Run that feature sidewalks, bike lanes. Same deal with US 158 from Louisville Clemens Road to Bermuda Run Roundabout. Part of that project is a road diet. It would involve narrowing of some of the lanes there, potentially safer conditions, and of course that connectivity over to Tanglewood, which is a big draw regionally, if not precisely, here in Winston-Salem, but definitely a regional draw. And you can see that there have been a few other recommendations for Country Club Road, sidewalks and bike lanes on both sides from Meadowlark all the way down to Peace Haven, Silas Creek Parkway sidewalk from Fairlawn to Bethabara Road, and then, of course, bus shelters throughout the WISTA system. So this is the recommendation that we're making with a very limited pool of points. There are 72 projects. We tried to be pretty multimodal in our recommendation, but we certainly welcome your feedback on how you think this recommendation could be improved. If there are any bike projects that you would prioritize above the ones that were submitted, and ways that you can do that include writing an email to me, filling out this prioritization 7.0 survey, and then of course, like last time, we have a public comment period that involves an interactive map where you can zoom around and click on different projects, create a comment on a project, a like on a project, or a dislike on a project. They're color coded by whether or not they're recommended to receive points. So we definitely welcome your feedback on that, and we're excited to see what you guys think. Just like last time, I know y'all put together a couple of support letters, one that went to Division 9 and one that went to us, the MPO. We'll certainly welcome those again. Know that our public comment period ends on November 8th, 2024, and the TAC will be taking action on our point recommendation on November 21st. So definitely get your letter in by November 21st. Once again, this is a little bit of a tight turnaround, but that's kind of the system we're dealt. So happy to answer any questions on this. I know it's a lot of information thrown at you at once. I guess one other thing that I would note is we did get some indication about which projects were selected and funded through the previous point assignment period. The regional impact, as you know, that's a really highway forward type of system. So not a lot of, bicycle and pedestrian projects really funded through that process, but 4 segments of the Beltway were funded, and probably, most directly impactful to bicycle and pedestrian issues was that 150249 Jonestown Road interchange was picked up and recommended for funding. The one important thing that really does is it pedestrianizes that bridge. If you travel that bridge, that there is a literal pedestrian prohibition sign on it. That will change. If this project is eventually fully funded and constructed, there will be sidewalks on that bridge and in the areas, and that will give some new life to the already funded Jonestown Road sidewalk project that goes from Country Club Road to that bridge. So, some good news there as far as what we've been getting through the previous cycle. What does remain to be seen, though, is whether or not that will hold with the impacts of the hurricane out in Western North Carolina, whether some of the funding picture will be revised. So, we'll find out what the schedule looks like for all of those projects, including the Beltway and a couple of other roadway segments in January. And, we'll be happy to provide an update then. With that, I'm done sharing. Anybody have any questions for me?
Hunter, I think you did answer the one question that I had. So we as a committee, if we want to submit a letter, we are not restricted to that November 8th deadline. We could go ahead and draft a letter, bring it back to our November 13th committee for review and approval, and then submit that.
That's correct. So yeah, I believe November 14th, that actually works out very cleanly, is the last day that we're accepting comments on our public review items. So yeah, November 13th would be, kind of the last moment that we could accept that, but we will accept comments leading up to the day of the TAC. That's totally fine.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any questions for Hunter? All right, a lot of homework is stacking up for everyone. You've got to respond to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration with comments. And now we need to be looking at the prioritization 7.0 division needs.
And Carol, there's actually one more thing. Kelly is here too, but WISTA's making some, there's a service improvement meeting for WISTA being held on October 16th. And I'll actually share my screen here, and I'll actually put it in the chat too. That the committee is welcome to provide some feedback on those improvements to the WISTA system. I'll share that link here right now. So I can also email it to people if they need it. Kelly, if there's anything you want to share, let me know.
No, you said it all. Good morning, everybody. Glad to see everyone. Let me turn my camera on so you can see me. Yay. Behind the WISTA bus. Yeah, no, Hunter said, Ben said it all. WISTA is having some route changes that we're proposing to the public, but also an overarching plan for how to improve the efficiency for the system overall. So review the document at your leisure. There's a link there that takes you straight to the actual website, all the information for the long-term vision, but also some immediate changes for early 2025 and some tech that we were proposing to bring to the system, some improvements in applications that we can use for the riders, for tracking the bus, for coordinating with PART, Greensboro, High Point, those kinds of things. So again, the meeting is on the 16th. If you are available and would like to stop by, please feel free. It's at the library downtown, and there's also a virtual link. If you are not able to come and would still like to participate, you can do so that way. And again, there's a survey at the bottom. You're welcome to take it and also share it. I think WISTA has already posted it on their websites, on their Facebook page. So if you want to share that, just help us spread the word. That would also be very helpful. But that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
When does that survey close?
Ooh, good question. I think it's at the beginning of November. So I think probably like November 10th, something like that. I'll verify that.
Okay. It's probably in the survey. I just was going to write it up my notes. So thank you.
No worries. Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Kelly? All right. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us and sharing that. Moving on to item number 8, upcoming elections for chair and vice chair role. If anyone is interested in the chair role or the vice chair role, please reach out to Ben or myself and let us know. If you are interested in someone other than me being the chair, I am open to that. It's a tough job. It requires quite a bit of work. If you want to nominate someone, please talk to them first before nominating them so that they have an opportunity to say yay or nay before you put their name on the slate. But in November, we would like to elect a hopefully new chair and vice chair. But having said that, if there is no one, I guess I can take it again, but would be more than happy for someone else to step into the chair role. So just let Ben or I know, and we'll address elections in the November meeting. Ben, you gave a great update, and I saw it in the minutes yesterday at the Piedmont Legacy Trails meeting. Recently, the steering meeting. And I was wondering if you could share all the work that's going on right now, the comments that you made at the steering committee meeting.
Yeah, I can try to remember what comments I made. I think some of them were for the active trail project we have right now. think many of you have seen the progress on the Salem Parkway multi-use path. So that's kind of planning to wrap up next summer, early fall. I think the last piece of that is going to be the bridge that goes over the on-ramp of the interstate. And then we're just getting our consultant under contract, doing some final contract approvals with Kimley Horn for the Long Branch Trail extension. I think many of you also know about that project. The design and engineering work on that project's gonna get underway pretty shortly here in the next month or so. And then I think it's like a 9-month work schedule. That'll be exciting, and I think the committee will have some opportunity to share input as the design of that trail progresses. Can't think of any other big updates right now. I think that's kind of the two big projects.
You mentioned the Piedmont Greenway.
That's right. Yeah, Piedmont Regional Greenway. Also, Kimley Horn was selected so the design of that greenway is at like 50% plans. And they're going to finish it out, the design and engineering work of that greenway. And it starts at Salem Lake. I can't remember what the road name is now, but the end of Salem Lake, and it will go to Hastings Hill Road. So that'll be a good little section of that greenway, and that's a section of the larger greenway that's supposed to eventually extend to Greensboro. So that'll
Linville
be exciting. Linville Road. Yep. Thank you.
And you also mentioned maybe a Great Trails State grant.
Possibly. We're kind of exploring our options on what is allowed to be funded with that grant and what kind of our needs are. Maybe a feasibility study for something. But yeah, that's kind of up in the air right now. I think that closes mid-November. So it's kind of something we'll be looking at.
Excellent. So a lot of stuff is going on to help the bicycle pedestrian community. Thank you for those updates, Ben.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, you're good. Perfectly good.
Got 5 minutes left. Are there any thoughts, comments from the committee on anything else? We ran through a lot today. Kind of looking down. October 19th, this is on the consent agenda. We do have an activity in Winston-Salem for the Great Trails State Day. It's in collaboration with the Winston-Salem Rec and Parks Group. And I will be there as one of the hosts working with Parks and Rec, or Recs and Park. But it will be at the quarry at Grant Park, and we'll do a walk out to Harding Street and back that day. So if anybody wants to join us with their family or friends, please come. And then you can say you participated on the day of the Great Trails State Day. Michael, you always have things going. Do you have anything to share?
So the Bike Walk NC Oliver, I guess he lives in Boone. So they did not attend this month's driver's ed classes, but I did make some good communication with them, and they said they will certainly make sure that I'm in the loop about when they're coming, and they plan to be the next cycle, which is sometime in November. No, might be October. But yeah, I just don't have the update on that. We do have a teen road safety day going on at Carver High School. Luli has put that on. It's coming up in October on the 29th. So I'm going to reach back out to Bike Walk and see if they're interested in attending that. But there's all kinds of groups, State Highway Patrol, a variety of things. But just it's all about driver safety for teens. What else? More bike safety education going on in some of the schools. Yeah, that's kind of moving full tilt. But yeah, I think that's about all we have right now.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll adjourn for today. Thank you all.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Have a good day.
See everybody.